live. Welcome back, everyone, to Misfits News Recap, where we'll be taking a look back of all the things that happened in the crossover space. This week, I'm joined by the multi-talented color commentator, Roundhouse Radio, aka Riley Osborne, and your PT's favorite PT, Leon Wills. Today, we have a lot of news. A lot of things have happened in the last week. Let's start off with that huge topic: Canelo Álvarez, Jake Paul, Terence Crawford, Turki Al-Kashi. What's your opinions on what happened?
Man, I just thought he got rug pulled. Jake got rug pulled, man. Like, that was crazy. First off, I got to say, old school, wily negotiation techniques from Canelo. You know, Jake's team, I feel bad for him. That sucks. But at the end of the day, like, if you've been around the sport of boxing for a long time, like, this ain't nothing new, man. Like, we know that I'm sure there was some backroom deals going on, that the deal was probably almost signed with Turkey. And Canelo was like, oh, look, I got this cool $100 million on the table. Like, you know, like, beat it. And then he got whatever deal he wanted, you know? So I don't know. Do I think when I first heard, Leon, I don't know about you, man. When I first heard Canelo, Jake Paul, I was like, no. Like, no, it just doesn't add up. Like, something's not adding up here. And I don't know if it was ever like as close as MVP think it was.
Yeah, I think it was one of them situations, but it felt too good to be true. Like, wow, this is actually possible. Like, Jake actually made it happen. But then Canelo just came out the winner. So all props to Canelo. Great negotiation skills. He played it great, man, because he got the best deal possible for him and his family and his team.
I just want to play devil's advocate for a second. Now, when I initially saw the Jake Paul Canelo fight coming into fruition, especially with all these tweets happening and a contract signed, I know it was just a disclosure. I genuinely do believe that fight could have been one of the biggest fights of all time in boxing. And part of me was a bit disappointed that fight didn't come together. Now, Canelo has now signed a four fight deal, and he is fighting, I believe it was Skrull. Apologies if I'm butchering the name. Do we believe Canelo made the right move here?
Of course he don't. Financially, no one's beaten Turkey.
At all.
So he's the lion.
Like, Turkey's just
you.
losing money. Like, he's just like, I don't care. You know, he's like, check out this oil money. I'm gonna just have the craziest boxing matches of all time. Like, and to counter your point there, like, could it have been viewership basis one of the biggest fights ever? Like, viewership basis, they do it on Netflix, no pay-per-view. Probably. But does anyone remember it? Right? 10 years from now, does anyone talk about it? Does it have any stakes in the actual realm of the sport of boxing? Does it add anything to Canelo's resume? The answer to all of that questions is no, right? So it's like, it's not the biggest fight in boxing. It'll never be, because there's no stakes to it.
I'd then throw it, then it would be the biggest fight in crossover boxing history, potentially, and it would add a lot into Jake Paul's career. So when he looks back, I thought Canelo, although he may have lost in round one, most likely, let's all be real, he would most likely lose in round one. He still stepped in there with one of the greatest fighters and active fighters of our generation. So that would have propelled crossover boxing to a different realm, I would say.
Do you think it would have been bigger than McGregor versus Mayweather?
No.
Yes.
No,
I don't think so.
No. Because I think people would start as we get closer. People would start to say, "What if Jake Paul lands one shot?" And I know that sounds ridiculous, but people said the same stuff about Mike Tyson landing the shot, which to me was absurd. It was absolutely absurd.
Triple G 3 times. He fought Triple G 3 times. You're telling me Jake
Paul had more
power?
No. But I think like when you look at like the general audience, especially the younger fan base as well, they would have said, "Oh no, Jake Paul lands a chance. Look at all the people he's knocked out." So I believe there would have been a big fan base thinking maybe Jake Paul could have won that, and that's where my argument lies. I almost wish that fight did happen.
Personally, I think Canelo just parked it off. He just parked Jake Paul in the underground garage. He can go back to Jake Paul whenever he wants. 5 years from now, Jake Paul's going to be waiting.
Well, that's the thing, is like, every time Jake Paul's been in negotiation, from in my memory, every single time he's like either he's the A side, or he doesn't make the fight happen. With KSI, he just doesn't make the fight happen. It's the only time he hasn't been the A side, like, clearly. And then this time, what happened? He just gets big man. Like, Canelo goes, oh, you think you're big? You know what I'm saying? And he just that like Leon was saying, Canelo was just like, cool, bro, yeah. You're in the garage. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you when I'm ready. You know what I'm saying? I'll swing back around when it's good for me. You know,
Convenient,
it's like, It's brutal. It's brutal. I understand why Jake's so pissed because they got, dude. I wouldn't have said any. I would have been like, all that was rumors. Not really sure what people are talking about. I would have fucking
Never
guessed it
happening.
myself, right? Instead, they're like, oh, we had it. We had the deal. It's like you never
He
had
can't
anything.
believe it.
Yeah, look at this signed contract. You didn't have anything. You had nothing.
I think there's this like current thought of that Riyadh season will never do anything with crossover boxing, especially after the move that was just pulled there. Do we actually ever believe Riyadh season and Turkey would get involved with crossover boxing and maybe dip their toes into it? Obviously, us being with Misfits Boxing.
He's already said that he dislikes it. He doesn't rate it. And when you hear
Yeah.
the list of fighters that he actually rates, they're all real proper fighters, like warriors, like stand in
Yeah.
the pocket.
Deji's up
Like
there, I've heard.
Now he likes with Larry Holmes and that. He's going way back to the red gloves of boxing.
Well, which is a shame, to be honest, because I think there could be things that could be done. For example, that Jake Paul KSI card could actually happen if he was to get involved. I think that's one of the only ways you actually make it happen. If you throw so much money where it's absurd, where both of them go, I have to take this fight, surely that's one of
But
the only ways we make it happen.
yeah, but the thing is KSI and Jake Paul, we don't need external money. Like that, the
Yeah.
money is there itself. We can make that happen ourselves. Whereas Turkey's making fights that they just would never be able to make happen on paper, right? That is like a core old school boxing fan. It's like it doesn't really make sense to pay 250 million for this fight because if you sold the pay-per-view, it'd make 100 million, right? He's losing 100 million on these events, but he doesn't really care because he can do that. Whereas with Jake Paul and KSI, like we can make the money ourselves. We don't need to go out and ask for this money. And I think that honestly, what just happened with Canelo and Jake is a great example that like, let's keep it in house. We can do it ourselves. We don't need these external, I guess, external forces just yet. Other than the great partners that we have found, like Qatar and them, like they've been amazing. But I'm saying that we can prove the value ourselves. We don't need to expect someone's going to take a big loss, which has been happening everywhere else. Everybody, all these other organizations are just losing money. You know, think back to Kingpin. Hey, here we're just negative 20 million gone. Organization's done, right? We don't need to do that. We're profitable. We're making money. We're in a position that really none of these other organizations have been. So I think that we're in a much better position than a lot of these other fights that are getting put on over there, which is, I love it. I love what Turkey's doing. All credit to them. I'm just saying that I think that we're in a different position negotiation wise.
I sort of want your opinions as well. There's a reason why I bring up Jake Paul and KSI. It's because once Jake Paul tweeted the fight's not happening, that I was in negotiations, KSI was the first one to react to it. He went onto MVP's channel. He tweeted on everything and he said, well, all roads lead back to me. He said, once I'm done with Dillon Danis, you can come fight me after March 29th. We always seem to see these guys both colliding, and Jake Paul's obviously just lost out on a massive payday when it comes to Canelo. So if it's not Canelo, I'm not saying the KSI fight will happen anytime soon. Where does Jake go from here?
I haven't got a clue. I don't know. I think I see them tweet like they got another person, another option available, and I can't put my finger on who it could be right now.
I feel like Jake's team, the plan was always to try to prove as much competence as possible without actually fighting legitimate competition, which is what every boxer does. Like, don't get me wrong. Every boxer does that. Every boxer finds the highest profile, easiest opponents they can to make the argument that they should get this big fight, right? Every single boxer does that. So that's not a shot at him or his team, but that's, in my vision, what they wanted to do. And then they wanted to finalize that with some big giant money fight that they know Jake is inevitably going to lose. And if you look at the trajectory of his career, that's exactly what makes sense. So I think that they had this vision that he gets up to here, he finally fights Canelo, he makes $100 million or whatever, gets, destroyed. Like Canelo plays with him, it's not even close, annihilated. Like Canelo's still like borderline in his prime. He's exiting his prime, but this is still Canelo Álvarez, right? And then gets destroyed, and then he can revisit these other fights. Then he can come back and be like, oh, I'll cash the check in for these quote unquote easy fights that he talks about. So I feel like they're in now that they were so close to the golden goose that they're probably kind of in limbo. Whereas I imagine that's how they wanted to play KSI, because these guys are looking out for themselves. They're not looking out for the scene. So I feel like they might have perceived that was the way it was going to happen. But the reality is why don't we make that fight right now? It doesn't make any sense. KSI was right. He's saying, bro, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to beat Dillon Danis, and then we should do it right now. Like, this is the time. But I feel like maybe Jake Paul's team just thinks that, or acknowledges that if KSI wins, like, Canelo's gone. That's gone forever. That's
Everything's
never
gone, yeah.
happening if you lose to KSI. So it's the risk. It's the risk that's always been there, and they fail to acknowledge it. If it's this easy fight, they say it is. Why wouldn't you take it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But they can lose to Tommy Fury and still say, oh, well, we lost to a pro boxer in his prime, young guy. So it's okay. It's fine. But if they lose to KSI after 3 years of saying, oh, this kid's terrible, what argument do they have now, right? So that's my perception. But again, I'm looking at it from the outside in. I don't know. What do you think, Leon? Am I crazy?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. They're not even mentioning the loss to Fury. They're trying to wipe that out of the history books. But yeah, it's one of them situations where they were so close to like a mega fight, a fight that's gonna get crazy engagement, and now they're in limbo. It's like, do they really wanna? Do they really wanna? Because in their mind, they feel they're so far ahead of KSI, Misfits, and the rest of influencers. They believe they're in a different realm. So now, I doubt they're gonna fight JJ next, and I think it favors JJ if they do fight now, because it's gonna be more on his terms. And just the swing of going from preparing for a camp against Canelo to then preparing for a camp against like JJ, and you're back in the influencer scene. It's gonna be hard for Jake. And you see he's an emotional wreck right now. He's going through, he's crashing out bad. Like he's going through it. He's going through it right now. So I don't know. I think he should just take time out.
Yeah, it's a bad
What?
look right now. It's a bad look. That's when I'm looking at it the outside in. It's look, I understand that he knows his audience better than I do. Like I'll
Yeah.
give him that for sure. But if you guys like me and Leon, when we see the way he's acting, it's like this is not a good look. This is not a good look. I'm sure his fans are like, oh yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah. Personally, I think him and JJ should fight towards the end of the year. That would be the perfect build up. They can go on a proper
Be
tour, trying to, yeah, like a press conference tour.
I mean,
Get some
anytime the fight
crazy
can happen,
influencers.
anytime the fight can happen is obviously a big time. But one of the names that got offered to Jake Paul that I saw surfacing online was Terence Crawford's teammate, Stephen Nelson. He called out Jake Paul. I don't know what you make of that. Maybe if he does want to be a pro boxer, if he wants to take legitimate fights and people to take him seriously, that's maybe the route he should take.
He doesn't.
Nah. Only trick that I can see them maybe trying to pull off is for Jake to fight Badu Jack. That just came to my mind just now.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
And there's a connection between their teams and whatnot. And Badu Jack, I think he's still got the WBC belt. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Or
I
it
don't
might be
believe so.
recess. Might be in recess. But yeah. So that's the only trick I can see him having up his sleeve, trying to fight someone with an actual belt. That's it.
But Badu's no slouch, man. Like
Yeah, well,
that's
Liam,
a
Liam,
high
you've
risk
seen
fight for him, even now.
you've
Yeah.
seen Badu Jack in action. You've seen him behind the
Yeah.
scenes. How would he
Yeah.
do with Jake Paul?
Badu should win. Badu will win, but it's a fight that it's not like I think Canelo would do Jake worse. I think because they're sort of they're under one umbrella. I think Badu might play into the, you know what I'm saying, into the script, I should say. And maybe
Yeah.
lose on points. Like win on points, sorry.
I get what you're saying.
I think there's another thing we need to address because Leon, I watched one of your podcasts the other day with Real Wills, and you said you're waiting for JJ's coaches to cook, to marinate
cook,
something.
yeah, to cook.
And I want you to tell me what dish did they cook with this fight that's been announced now.
It wasn't a dish. It wasn't no signature dish. It might have been their signature dish, but it wasn't no meal that was for the appetite, to be honest.
Are we talking
In
a
this
meal
realm.
deal from Tesco's? £2.
Oh
£3.
wow, meal deal, you know. I think that was pepperami or something.
Talk me through why do you
Fish-
disagree with the selection
strength.
of opponent? Because I see a lot of strength in the reason why they took that fight, and obviously
Watch
I
gems.
saw
Watch gems.
in terms of promotion, I think in terms of promotion and selling ability, that I understand why they went with it. And obviously, I
JJ's
saw
selling
the names.
regardless. JJ's selling regardless.
Yeah, but
Regardless. It's a powerhouse.
when we compare it to the last opponent, and that's no digs to JJ's last opponent selection, I think this is definitely a step up. This is going to be someone that can get the best out of JJ and also get an angry JJ, someone that can react and maybe he can.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see that
get that fire
from
back.
a theatrical perspective. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. But in the grand scheme of elevating as a fighter, it's just you're not gonna learn much or do much.
Riley, I saw also on your channel the other day, you saw sort of the landscape of JJ's fights this week, and you go, okay, now I understand why this opponent selection has been done. Now it's it makes sense. Now, obviously, having Leon here as well, could we get a bit more backstory or context towards that?
Well, it's just like when I look at the concept of coming back after 18 months, long time off after injury. Also, people think that, KSI is the same as Jake Paul, where he's just in the gym grafting for 18 straight months. Of course, he's training, and he says that he's always training, but there's a difference between being in camp and fighting consistently and making YouTube videos with your successful channels and your successful YouTube channel, like shows and all this stuff, and then trying to box in between and training to the best of your ability. It's just a different ball game. But the only thing I like about Dillon Danis is he's durable, and people can't really take that away from him. He's always been durable. He's got cracked consistently, even in his MMA fights back in the day, like clean 4-ounce gloves off the dome, because he just wasn't defensively responsible. You watch the Logan Paul fight. I mean, Logan beat the crap out of him for the whole fight pretty much, and he was durable. He stayed in there the entire time. He'll get up if he gets knocked down. And he has an old school traditional boxing guard, and it's actually somewhat disciplined. Like, he can block shots with it. He knows how to defend himself with his hands high. And if KSI wants to fight Jake Paul, that's how Jake Paul is going to defend himself. Jake Paul does a modified Philly shell a little bit too, because he's usually so much bigger than his opponents. But if he's not that much bigger than his opponent, he'll go to the traditional guard. Dillon Danis does that as well. So I think that in the concept of getting better, Leon, you're saying there's nothing that he's going to get better at. I think that the thing that he can get better at here, and look, guys, I'm trying to find a silver lining. I don't love it. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I love this fight. But in the concept of finding the things that make sense to me and trying to look at what his team's looking at, yeah, I think it's going to be good for him to learn how to see a high guard in front of him and learn how to break it down, and then learn how to hunt down and destroy someone that should be durable enough to get back up a couple times and give it to him. Because the last couple of opponents, let's call a spade, he knocked those guys clean out. So other than, of course, Tommy Fury. So yeah, that's kind of my view of it.
I think with me, because I've spent a lot of time with JJ, and legacy is a big part of him. And I always say, if it was like his if we're watching like reading the autobiography of JJ and it's called Legacy, slightly you can see a drift away from that in a lot of their opponents. That's why we're not sticking to the script of legacy in terms of JJ. That's why I think if you want to build a legacy in this game, in this crossover game, then you've got to fight decent people, because we see other fighters in the scene taking on harder challenges, and JJ's been in the scene way longer than them. That's why in the narrative of legacy, it's just not making sense for me personally, and for the JJ I know and know what he's capable of.
Yeah, but when you look at a 3-year game plan, do you think that that's not possible still? Because for me, it's like, look, this is a good opportunity to get that ball rolling again, get that momentum moving in the right direction again. Instead of, look, if he just keeps doing warm-up, like quote unquote warm-up fights or whatever, yeah, I would agree with you. But I don't think this is some nail in the coffin people try to keep saying it is. I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's a good way to sort of get the momentum going again. But it's tough stuff.
It's a thing where if you're in it to be the best or you're in it just to entertain, then it's two different things. I don't know what the objective is now. So if
We
you're
need
in
to
it
get
to
you
be
back in there, bro, man. If Leon was still training with KSI, it'd be a different game.
it's different. No, it's different. It's different. But yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know from the choice of opponents, because I'm in contact with him. I speak to him, and even like when he's fought the Tempers and that, and these other people, I've said, oh, you should fight this guy, should fight that guy, and whatnot, and they haven't really taken the initiative to fight the guys I've asked for. But it is what it is. It is what it is. The coaches, I hope they know what they're doing, and that's it. Because one of the sad things is, I watched the interview, and the coach was saying why he don't know why Jake Paul didn't go for the immediate rematch with Tommy, as the fight was close. But JJ fought a closer fight than Jake did against Tommy. So why didn't you use your same advice and take the rematch straight away, or the rematch next? That's why the coaches do a lot of talking, but they're not really applying nothing, because I'm not seeing anything.
There's a point
That's
I
why
want
you
to
can just watch
expand.
their videos and listen to them. Just watch their video interviews and then listen to them. They're just contradicting themselves.
There's a point I want to expand on, Leon, because you mentioned in your video with Vidal, they are now trying to regress and learn the traditional side of boxing. They're trying to find out the roots again of their boxing, and they went from jumping jacks and now finding the traditional. Could you expand upon that point that you were talking with Vidal?
Yeah, so basically they went for like a unique jumping style, and now they're talking about making it hybrid, going back to using the fundamentals of boxing. So now they're reverting back to something they should have done. Because we're in boxing, you should always deal with the fundamentals first and foremost. Then you can add in the other stuff to cause confusion and whatnot. But so we shall see against Dillon Danis what he does. But at the end of the day, in order to generate the most amount of power you can in a punch, you need both feet on the floor. Both feet need to be on the ground in order to generate the maximum amount of power you can. And that's what we want to see because I know JJ can bang. I've seen JJ knock out several people. Several, not one, several. I've seen Vidal have to put people in a recovery position. I even think Vidal was going to do CPR. But yeah, I've seen him knock out serious people. Like this guy can generate power when both feet are on the floor and when he actually boxes. So that's what I want to see. I want to see him annihilate people, man, because I know he's got it in him to annihilate people. And
Yeah, I think
that's what I'm
maybe
waiting to see.
maybe it's just frustration in when you can see how great someone can be, you want to see that in action.
Yeah,
You know, you
that's
want
what
to
it
see
is. That's
that.
what that's exactly what it is with me.
Mhm.
That's exactly like I don't like the swarms, the Pinedas, the tempers. It doesn't make sense because in my mind, you're in a different realm from these people. Like you're not even meant to
He
be brushing
is. I mean,
shoulders
look
with
at the fights.
yeah.
Look at the
You're not
results.
meant to be brushing shoulders with these people.
Yeah.
Like it should be an insult for someone to say you're fighting Dennis next. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. You should be insulted, like that. Someone is saying like, "I'll fight Dennis." Like when people
That's what
try
I'm
to say
saying,
to
bro.
me, "Oh, people try to say to me, you should fight Idris." I'm gonna say Idris Elba, Idris Virgo. That's an insult. That's an insult to me. Like, come on. That's like that's
That
like
should be a privilege. He's
asking,
the pro
bro.
champ
That's
right
like
now.
that's like asking Neymar to go and play in a conference or the Ryman's League. Like, it's not making sense. It's not making sense. You're gonna go and tell what you call it. Who can I say? You're gonna tell LeBron to go and play in Lithuania. Come on, man. It's not making sense.
Dude, Leon gets me riled up every time.
But it's
Yo,
disrespectful.
Leon
It's
knows how to get people to
disrespectful.
battle, bro.
You think I'm
know
gonna go
how
in the
to
ring
get
and
people to
touch
battle.
glove with this peasant?
Yeah,
Come
I
on,
got
man.
you.
Touch gloves. The rest gonna say touch gloves. You got to touch gloves with this peasant. Come on, man.
I think a question I think a lot of the fans have, especially when this fight was announced, and even in my mind, I believe your guys' mind as well, is does Dillon Danis actually turn up to this fight? You know, he's spoken so many times. We actually had the fight scheduled in, I believe, a couple of years ago. It didn't come into fruition. Do you believe this time round he will make the walk? He will come and fight KSI?
You don't know with Dillon Danis, man. You do not know with him. This guy, you do not know with him. Like I can't say. I'm still unsure. I'm still unsure. What do you
I
think,
mean,
Riley?
I'm praying. We're talking about the luckiest guy in the history of combat sports. Like that's the only way you can word that. This is the most fortunate person in the history of combat sports. He has the opportunity to fight two of the biggest names in influencer boxing after doing nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Like
why do you think he was
zero.
awarded these opportunities?
Because he's brilliant on social media. He is. He's a wizard. You know, he's like the ultimate troll. But it's like if he doesn't show up, man, like I hope there's like multiple clauses in a contract that you have to prove exactly what's going on as to why you don't show up if he doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think there's look, man, I've trusted Mams in this process and I'll trust him again because I think that if he's talking to these people and he knows, then we'll trust him on this because yeah, like he's gonna know more, and that's he's making his bet. He's making that bet that Dillon's gonna show up, and he better, man. I mean, if he doesn't like delete this guy from everything, like take his
Even if he does,
social
he should be
media down.
deleted. Even if he
Yeah.
does, he should be deleted in the
Well,
ring.
he's gonna get deleted. If he does, he's getting deleted. Yeah, like.
Yeah. But I even see a
He's
picture of him.
getting
He's still wearing MMA gloves and in the MMA gym when he's preparing for a boxing fight.
No, he doesn't
Do you
have
think-
a
do you
coach,
think-
man. He's never had a coach.
That was probably
Yeah.
from years ago. That was probably from
Oh, you
years
reckon
ago.
it's
He's
an
not
old picture?
training. Yeah, probably.
It said it's in Cabo.
I just want to recap slightly to Misfits 20, where we had a great performance from Darren Till. He took out Anthony Taylor, who I actually favored in that fight. I went to you, Leon, and we actually spoke ringside. Said, "Yeah, Anthony Taylor, he's got it." And it was, yeah, it was a
Leon, you
show.
did not say that.
I said it.
didn't
I
say
said
that.
it. It was me. It was me. It was me.
Oh,
It was me. I was the one that said it. I
Oh,
got Anthony Taylor.
I was like, Leon, what?
Yeah.
No, I was confident, but we saw Darren Till
man.
pull an absolute masterclass. And I think a lot of us that night believed he was going to be the opponent of KSI. Now, I have the question, where does Darren Till go from here? Because he really showed an ability that I think he could be one of the better fighters in the scene.
Darren Till's got motion right now, man. When I saw him, I can see he's loving the moment. He felt the cheering from the crowd. He was in, yeah, he had aura. He had aura. So now it's just, I want to see him fight at least 2 more times this year and keep the ball rolling, man. He's doing great. Yeah, showcase some great boxing as well. That's what I want to see. I want to see great boxing. I want to see fighters improving fight after fight. Misfits, I want to see Misfits as, as a whole improving on their boxing year and year and year. So it's just like normal boxing. So Turkey can't say it's like getting sanctioned by Disney or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? People have to put respect on crossover boxing because they're seeing proper boxing now. But I still want to see the newbies still trying to get a hang of boxing. But when you're being in a game for like 2, 3 years, I want to see some proper boxing technique.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned about the pro division as there as well. Ben and I actually announced 2 pro fights that should be taking place on March 29th. You've got Ty Mitchell, and you've also got Amir Cashman Anderson. What is your thoughts? Because I know Ben and I have had our thoughts about the pro fighters coming into the Misfits boxing scene. How do we integrate them in? What's the plan with that? Because I know you guys are involved with that.
It's easy, man. It's the same way you would normally, I think, because people love to see good fights. And I think that we've done the right thing too in not doing it as extreme with the journeyman that you see a lot of these other guys doing. I mean, Cashman, he's proven to be better than I think that we even expected him to be. Like, he is phenomenal. He's very talented. But Jahan Ingram was a good example. Like, we put him in there against some guy that showed up. And Leon, you've been around the scene forever. How many times have you seen a journeyman that was there for a check? 0-7, punch and bag, you know?
Yeah.
That's has not been the guys that we've been hiring for them to fight. And that's how you do it, man. That's how you actually build these guys up. There has to be some risk involved. There has to be, you know? And some of these other promoters are not willing to take any risk at all. So yeah, that's how I think that's how you do it. You just put them in there against guys that are actually going to show up to fight, but of course are underdogs, and see how if they sink or swim.
And I think with these guys, because they understand the scene, what they're part of, that's how we're starting to see them showcase their character. You see Ty Mitchell having fun in there, pulling off some good moves, and that's what the scene wants to see. So now they're seeing actual pro fighters coming with that energy, coming with that charisma. That's what's going to gravitate them and make them follow over into watching them continue their pro journey.
Well, right now, the back and forth we're getting right now is Ty Mitchell and Idris Virgo. I don't know what you guys make of that fight, but I think that could be a fun one.
Oh, yeah, that's going to happen.
It's going to happen, is it, Leon?
That's happening.
It has to. It just cannot keep calling out Saul Poppy. Like, what are you doing, bro? Like, what is going on? So, yeah, he's got to make us put some respect on his name, you know? Like, you can't just say it. You can't just say it out loud and say it's going to happen. You know, you got to.
Who's got? I think does Idris have a better pro record than Ty?
Idris has a win against a guy who had 208 losses.
Yeah,
like what is that, man? Like, that's a corpse. That is a corpse. Like, that's not even a human being. Another guy with 124 losses, another guy with 108. Like, what are we doing here, man? Yeah. So, you gotta start actually taking the risk, and when you take the risk, that's when you reap the reward. You know, I want to see it. He's a talented fighter. Like, he can scrap. So if he wants to make a name for himself and make it legitimate,
if he wants respect, that's it.
I think in terms of recap, we've pretty much got everything, but I just want to look ahead a little bit before we sign off. Misfits 21, obviously right now being built. I've been seeing all the rumors online. I've actually heard what the card could possibly be. I don't know if you guys have, but what's your current thoughts on the full card if you have heard some of the fights that are being announced?
Trying to get leaks. He's trying to get leaks.
I'm not trying to get any leaks. I'm not getting any leaks.
That's a good card. It's a good card.
I just want your thoughts.
It's a good card, man. It's a very good card. I like the card.
Yeah, I like every aspect.
It's a strong card.
I think it's a builder as well.
People should be pumped.
Only leak I can say there's a rematch on there. There's a potential rematch. That's it.
Oh, we'll take that. We'll take that. But I think a lot of the fights that come out of this will have even bigger and better fights down the line, if that makes sense. If they win this one, they become massive stars on Misfits.
And I've been saying this for a while now. Like, we have been making notable improvements impact wise in the scene. Every one of our last few events, especially like I'm thinking Qatar, and then of course the last event with Darren Till, each one has been way more presence in the arena, a lot more fans showing up. The engagement afterwards on social media has been insane, huge numbers, millions of views. And we're doing that now without having to have KSI headlining a fight. I can only imagine the impact that KSI is going to be headlining this. Like, it's really impressive to see. So all the decisions are making sense right now and adding up. And this is just another expansion of that. Like, it's still that good. So,
Well, talking about decisions being made, I heard a little rumor that the small council is currently missing a member. You know, goodbye to Keemstar. Much love to Keemstar. But do we have any updates on what's going on in the small council? I've heard I personally am taking over, and all decisions will be made by Ben and Biel once Ben is back from his ventures.
no.
The company would last about a week. I'd give it. Who would you guys like to see? I want to see your votes. If we can get your votes in.
Oh, I already said somebody, Leon. I forget who I said. I threw in some names, but I forget who I said. I was saying Sensei if he wants to show up, that'd be fun. Something like that, something along those lines. But
yeah, there's been a few names. There's been a few names.
Yeah.
There's been a few names. I ain't saying anything, but yeah, there's been a few names.
Well, that's been your Misfits news recap. We pretty much went top to tail of everything that happened in crossover boxing. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If I did, let me know down in the comments. But we will be seeing you on Thursday's episode, so make sure you're subscribing, putting the notification bell on, and we will see you then.